today we truly are living in an amazing time. At this juncture of the Kali Yuga, which is 5,200 years old, we have come to a point where quite literally everything that it means to be human, everything that it means to have meaning in existence, in reality, is quite literally on a precipice. Quite literally on a precipice. With the dawning of modernity, roughly 250 years ago, something radical has occurred, a radical shift in our understanding, in our worldview, in how human beings relate to each other, relate to their surroundings, relate to nature, relate quite literally to God, in such a manner that quite literally in the last 250 years, human consciousness has shifted, and not for the better, unfortunately. In Vedic culture, as is true for all ancient cultures, not just Vedic culture, as is true for all ancient cultures, we do not believe that in the last several hundred years we've been evolving, we've been progressing. On the contrary, we believe very much the opposite, and anyone who has any sense of history, anyone who is observing the world in an awakened way, illumined by wisdom provided to them by the ancient scriptures, understands that, oh yes, things have been getting worse. Whereas at one time, in pretty much every single culture on the face of the earth, from great civilizations and world empires to the smallest tribal communities, we went from at one time every single culture believing in the sacred, believing in the transcendent, to now that being a rarity in any culture. In any culture. And most especially, unfortunately, the liberal secular democracies of the West. You know, three very idealistic sounding words, which unfortunately has led to a modern culture in which God has been pushed out and everything related to God. God has been pushed out, the Spirit has been pushed out, meaning has been pushed out. As human beings with physical bodies, we need food. We need water. You know, we need sunlight. There are certain things that we need to survive physically. Spiritually, we need meaning to survive. If we have a life that is devoid of purpose, and not just purpose, not just, oh yes, it's time for me to get up and go to my job today, oh, how happy. No, transcendent purpose, a purpose that is eternal, a purpose that quite literally touches our soul. Without that, we have what we have today. And I'm not going to do what many people do with talks like this. I'm not going to give you a long list of all the various crises that the world is going through, because we all know this. We know the economic crisis that America and really the whole world is going through. We know the crime, we know the violence, we know how people all the time have been just getting meaner and meaner to each other, less and less patient. For those of us who are old enough, some here aren't, but for those of us who are over 40, we remember the 70s. We remember a time when people were just laid back and happy, when it was common for a person to have a smile on their face, not worrying about the superficialities of life. Again, for those of us who are old enough, we remember a time like this, when you didn't quite have to worry about whether you're going to be killed every time you walked into the streets of a major urban area. And on and on and on. As far as the negatives of where we find ourselves today, I or anyone knowledgeable can talk about that for hours. You know, we know where we are. And especially for everyone who is here today. And everyone who is here today, and trust me, I'm not saying this to simply praise you. Again, those who know me know I don't do that. Everyone who is here today is indeed special. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. Because you see, here in Omaha and surrounding areas, there are over 1 million people. Then there's the entire state. Then there are anywhere from 310 to 350 million people in the United States, depending on who you listen to. Then there's a massive world that is out there of 7 billion people. And yet, of all those people, you have chosen to be here. You have chosen not to go see a football game, not to be at a bar right now, not to be shopping, doing something, sitting, vegetating in front of a TV. You have chosen to do something spiritual. You have chosen to sit in seats, to sit on the floor, and do something that you are hoping, and in some cases that you know, is going to change your life for the better. You have chosen this of your own free will. And that makes you truly special. What we have been doing here today, what we will continue for a few more hours to do, what we are going to be doing tomorrow is something which, for people who are not spiritual, it would be very, very difficult for them to understand. But we understand. We are igniting a fuse. What we are doing is attempting to change the world in the way in which it needs to be changed. And we all know that that is ultimately spiritually. Spiritually, it needs to be changed. Again, there are all these crises on all different fronts. Basically, in every single aspect of the human experience, there are crises going on. You know? What do we do about the economic crisis? What do we do about the psychological crisis? The fact that so many people suffer from depression and other mental illnesses, again, due to this meaninglessness, and this problem and that problem, and all of these various problems combined. Well, in the scriptures, it gives a very beautiful analogy that I am by far not the first person to communicate to an audience. Beautiful analogy. If you can envision a massive tree, the largest tree you've ever seen in your life, with multiple hundreds and hundreds of branches and so many leaves on every one of those branches. And just envision that you know this tree needs nourishment, otherwise it's going to die. And you have water, and you want to nourish the tree, you want to nourish all those branches, all of those leaves that are on the tree. Well, now at this point, you have two courses of action that you can perform. You can go to every individual leaf, take water, put it on the leaves. Put it on one leaf, go to the next leaf, and on like that. You know, spray water on all the branches. Get the whole tree completely wet. What will happen if that's all you do, is put the water on the leaves? The leaves are going to die. Instead, interestingly, almost counterintuitively, what do? You take that water and you put it in one place at the root. And in that way, once you put the water at the root, everything is solved. Every single leaf, the branches, every single individual part of that tree has what it then needs to thrive. Well, of course, I think everyone here understands the analogy. This world is that tree. All the individual problems that we see around us, and not just socially, you know, not just the bigger problems that we're talking about, economic and political and etc., but our own individual problems as well. Because we all have challenges, we all have problems in life, we all have crises, we all have things that occur where, you know, I need help with this. Every single one of these problems, crises, big and small, is represented by one of those leaves. It's represented by the twigs, by the branches. And that root is God. That root is God. That root is the divine. So, Sanatana Dharma, and especially when seriously practiced, is not a path for everyone. It is a path for the idealist. It is a path for the idealist. It is a path for the thinker. It is a path for the compassionate among us, for someone who truly wants to transform themselves, but more, having transformed ourselves, it is also a path for that individual who knows that having now transformed themselves, having now acquired wisdom, now I want to save the world. Because that is part of the spiritual path. You see, if we exercise a mere spiritual selfishness, oh, I'm just going to do yoga for myself and I'm just going to meditate on, oh yes, I want to know God and achieve liberation and just get out of here. Which many people indeed have that attitude. They're practicing half of spiritual life. Because what it means to be truly spiritual is that, yes, first you do have to save yourself. You know, first put a life preserver on yourself, then you can save others. But then you can and must save others. So this is the second most important aspect of spiritual life, is that yes, we see a world on fire. Yes, we see people who are pained, who are troubled. We need to help them in every way that we can. And this is where Dharma comes in. Many of us can tend to speak about Dharma in a very high-minded sort of way, a very philosophical, very general, very, let's say, macrocosmic sort of way. You know, just overly philosophical. The truth of the matter is, Dharma is something that has the ability to transform every single one of us in a very specific way, specifically for us. It's true, Dharma is something that is operative within the entire universe, but more than this, we also have what is called our own svadharma. We have our own individual dharma. Maybe some people have heard this Sanskrit term before, svadharma. It means we all have our own individual nature as well. And right now, for most of us, we are not in contact with that nature. We are indeed, as individuals, living the opposite of naturally, living very artificially. And the root of that artificiality begins with self. You know, we are Atman. We are this eternal being lying within all of these false layers of what we think we are. When you strip away what I look like, when you strip away what I think about, when you strip away what I identify with, when you strip away what I call myself, when you strip away all these things that we identify with, yet when you reach that thing that cannot be stripped away, when you reach that thing which is eternal when everything else is not, that is self. That is Atman. That is what in the West is sometimes called spirit, sometimes called soul. That is our true self. Indeed, I often make this very important distinction. And, you know, I also will use the word soul sometimes, but then I always have to clarify by explaining that the concept of Atman is different from the Western concept of soul. You see, Sanatana Dharma does not teach that we have a soul. We don't believe that we have a soul. We believe that we are a soul. See that important distinction? See, if you have something, well, you can lose it. And that's very much the idea of soul in the Western world. You know, you can sell your soul to the devil. You can, you know, literally lose your soul. No. Soul is not an appendage like my left arm, like a kidney, like a spleen. It's not something you can lose. You know, it is what we are. It is our true identity. So, the beginning of our problem, of really all problems, is this, that we forget that fact. We forget that we are Atman. And we live as if we are everything, anything else but Atman. You know, we put labels upon ourselves. Thus, all the distinctions that exist. Thus, all the conflict that exists. You know, all sorts of strife between peoples that really shouldn't be there. Why? Because we're convinced that we're these things. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that. I'm Indian, I'm American. I'm this age, that age, etc. I'm a Presbyterian. I'm Buddhist. I'm anything. Million, billion, infinite number of designations and combination of designations that we can give ourselves, none of which we are. But yet we are so convinced that we are those designations that my designation will go to war against that designation. That's why we fight. That's why we fight. That's why there's conflict. That's why there is economic crisis. That's why there is political crisis. That's why there is crisis of spirit. Because we have forgotten this, who and what we are. Thus, I think we're beginning to understand, we're beginning to see this. When we can grasp truly the spiritual, everything else is taken care of. Practically, everything else is taken care of. Not magically, not overnight, and not made perfectly. See, I always have to explain this to people that our vision of a dharmic society does not mean a perfect society. People are still going to steal once in a while. People are going to get into fist fights. People are going to argue once in a while. However, this will all be reduced dramatically. Why? Because what is at the center of people's concerns, both individually and socially, will have shifted radically. Right now, in America especially, what is the center of our concern? Money. Money, 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 money. And then all the accoutrements that you get with that money, of course. For so many people, that is at the center of everyone's concern. Thus we fight. Remove that from the center, and instead, again, have the transcendent there. Understand who we are individually as this eternal being of light. This being of light that we are. This is the nature of Atman. That we already are perfect. You see, this idea and all this imagery that we hear repeatedly in so many different spiritual and religious paths, that, oh, we have to reform ourselves spiritually and we have to evolve spiritually and etc., etc. This is all used basically in order for us to understand the nature of the path, not the nature of self. The nature of self is such that we are to understand soul is already perfect. We have simply forgotten this. We have perfection covered by imperfection, thus separating our empirical vision and even our mind's eye from that perfect spiritual self, that consciousness. Once we understand this, there will be revolution in our own lives, and there will be revolution on a mass scale. The world in which we're presently living is indeed in crisis. The reason why, very practically, is because Dharma has been in decline for the totality of the Kali Yuga. The present age in which we're living is known as the Kali Yuga. It is the worst of 4 ages in total, three preceding ages. We are now in the last of these ages. Kali Yuga is the age of conflict. It is an age in which practicing spirituality is very, very difficult. You know, and what we have seen for the last 5,200 years, which is essentially when this present age began, you'll notice how many people, I've always been fascinated by this. People will always talk about, oh, the last 5,000 years of history, or the last 5,000 years of civilization. It's fascinating how even atheistic historians have this concept that we have been living in a 5,000-year-old age. They have no idea why themselves they always say that. Oh, for the last 5,000 years, such and such. You'll hear even professors say this. And they'll never explain to you, why 5,000 years? And the reason why they won't explain it to you is because they themselves don't know. Well, we know. It's because this is the era of Kali. This is the Kali Yuga. In the Kali Yuga, what we have seen is that for the last 5,200 years, there has been a continuous descent. With cycles, certainly. Even with a descent, you know, there are cycles, little mini ages that occur. But it's a downward progression ultimately, until finally this age comes to an end, and then the Satya Yuga, the golden age, begins again. Well, we are about to enter into one of those mini cycles, into one of those mini golden ages. I'm not the only person who knows this and who says this. Maybe I talk about it more elaborately than most, and certainly from a Vedic perspective, which is the perspective, you know, that I know the best. But we are indeed about to enter into a new, and I have to pause here, age. Because I don't like to say new age. I don't like anything new age. We are entering into a new age. A new era, a new aeon. And this is indeed going to be a mini golden age. This is going to happen. It's going to happen gradually, as is true with all transitions in ages. You know, people who have this idea that transitions in ages literally happen like that don't understand the nature of time. Ages do not switch that quickly. Rather, like nature, they take their time in this transition. But we are indeed about to enter into a new golden age. What will ensure that this happens indeed a little bit faster rather than slower, and that it happens smoothly rather than with a lot of trauma, is us, is all of us who are here in this room today. In this age, what we are missing more than anything, indeed what has been systematically and purposefully taken away from us, have been leaders. Leaders. Unfortunately, the present system that exists in such a manner that it does not want to be replaced. It is a demonic system that has been in power for quite some time. It does not want to be overthrown. It does not want to be replaced. It does not want to give in its materialism to spirituality. Thus, it eradicates leaders, and it does everything in its power to make sure that true leaders do not arise. That's going to change. What we need now more than anything are Dharma Rakshakas. We need guardians of Dharma. We need defenders of Dharma. I have been a defender of Dharma for 40 years. I can't do it alone. I need everyone here also to become a defender of Dharma. And what that means, first and foremost, is that you incorporate Dharma into your own life. See, this is crucial. There's what I call premature guru syndrome. Individuals who, before they themselves have allowed themselves to mature, they think that they're a leader. No, first we begin with ourselves. First we start here. Then we go there. But first we start here. Very important. We need to build that foundation that could take decades. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You know, we're all different. For some people it'll be shorter, for some people longer. But ultimately we need to build that spiritual foundation starting with ourselves. What that means is, first of all, in everything that we think, and everything that we speak, and everything that we do everything dharmically. We try to take this amazing gift from the universe, this Dharma, and we incorporate it into our own lives. I think people have begun to see, if even just in a germ form, in just the beginning form, with everything that we've done here, Dharma is all-encompassing. You can take as much from Dharma as you wish, to the point where you just kind of take maybe one thing, if that's all you want, that, you know, maybe all you do is you meditate for 20 minutes a day, you know, which is wonderful. Or you may take it to the point where quite literally every single breath that you take is done in a dharmic manner. It's all up to you. Again, we are all individuals, and Dharma is never forced upon anyone. We, as I've repeated several times, we believe in teaching, not preaching. We don't believe in enforcing Dharma on people, because we understand, due to reincarnation and karma, we understand how we are all different, with different needs, with different histories, not just in this life, but going back who knows how many lives. So this is why we need to respect each other and where we find each other at any given time. But however much you can incorporate the principles, the lifestyle of Dharma into your own life, please do that. In everything that you think, in everything that you say, and in everything that you do. In everything that we think, this is sadhana. Very specifically, sadhana. You know, in our meditation, incorporate meditation as much as possible into your life. And not just any meditation. Don't just do something in which you're not watching TV and call it meditation. No. Meditate upon God. Very specifically. Meditate upon God. Don't play games. Meditate upon that which is the highest. Because what do we want? Do we want the lowest? Do we want the 2/3? Or do we want the highest? Do we want the partial? No, we want the highest. Do we want partial truth? 10% truth. I'll take 10% of truth, please. Yeah. Not the full truth. No. We want it all. Full truth. We want indeed the highest, that than which nothing higher can be conceived. So, meditate. I'm sure everyone here is very ethical. Increase that. Become as virtuous a person as you can. That means give of yourself. That means in your thoughts always try to think good of others. Be compassionate. Try to do good to others. Just in everything that we do. For individuals who are not vegetarian yet, please work your way toward that as much as possible, and again, to your own degree. As I mentioned to people, I've been vegetarian since 12, but I purposefully took 9 months to get completely there. Purposefully. Because I understood that I wanted to be vegetarian for the rest of my life. So I took my time with it, little by little, cutting things out. In the same way, if you're not vegetarian yet, take your time with it, but work toward that. Work toward that as much as you can. As much as possible, try to study the scriptures. Go directly to the sources. Go directly to the sources whenever you can. Yes, it's inspiring sometimes to read secondary sources. A book by Swami so-and-so, or this person, that book. Even my books, truthfully, I think my books are quite nice. But if I could recommend something, I would recommend, if you have a choice, go to the source. Go to the Bhagavad Gita. Go to the Upanishads. Go to these actual scriptures. Learn from them. Have them become a part of your very consciousness. This is the nature of this path, that we try to absorb the good and rid ourselves of the opposite of the good. We do this by quite literally bathing our senses, bathing our intellect, bathing our hearts, bathing our very being in that which is good, in that which is true. We bathe ourselves in God as much as possible. So that's the thinking part. Now, as far as practicing Dharma in words, share Dharma with everyone you can. Again, teach, don't preach, don't be annoying. like some evangelist going from door to door. We don't do that. But out of compassion, when you see people who are questioning, who are troubled, who are hurt, who truly want to know the truth, and you know that, oh yes, this is really a sincere person and they want to know, share with them. Share with them. See yourself as a doctor, spiritual doctor, sharing with them what they need and what will ultimately heal them. So thinking, words, action. Action. This is a path of action. While it can indeed be very philosophical, and for myself, unfortunately, I'm forced to be very, very philosophical because that's my role, is that of teacher. Truthfully, Dharma does not exist only here. Dharma exists in our muscles. Dharma exists in our sweat. Dharma exists in what we do in the real world. See, a week ago, before we had this conference, last Sunday, we had maybe 8, 9, 10 volunteers here, including myself, getting sweaty preparing this place. I cleaned all the woodwork. I used muscle, We need to actually do in the world. What does that mean? That means that in order to sustain, to protect Dharma and to nourish Dharma such that rather than declining as it has been for the last 5,200 years, the opposite happens, it begins to flourish. What we need to do is to support Dharma by supporting those who are supporting Dharma. I'm going to be very blunt about this. I used to be very shy about this. I'm not going to be today. I've learned that I need to be blunt about this. Help us with what we are doing. We have a mission. There are many organizations in the world, even many Vedic organizations in the world. I know them almost all. I've studied them all. In some cases, I know the leaders of these organizations. There are many Vedic organizations in the world, some doing tremendous good, some a little bit of good, a few of them not doing good at all, unfortunately. Again, wide variety, just like there's a wide variety of people. We have a movement I would rather call it a movement than an organization, because organization has bad connotations, you know. We have a movement, quite literally, of action that is designed for one thing and only one thing, and that is a Vedic restoration. That is to bring sanity back to this world, spiritually. That is this International Sanatana Dharma Society. When I gave it a name, I tried to give it the most appropriate name that I could. It is a Sanatana Dharma Society for the world, international, to change the entire world. We want to change the world, certainly at the foundational level, spiritually, but more than this, and this is something that makes this radically different from what other gurus, movements, organizations do. We want to change the world politically. We want to change it economically. We want to change it culturally. We want to change it aesthetically. We want to change the scientific realm. We want to change, quite literally, every single field of human experience that exists in the world today. Because only such a total vision can change the world in the way that it needs to be changed, which is fundamentally and at its very core. Again, going to the root of all things, not simply the peripheries. I ask you to please help us in every way. We are not a massive movement. That is by design. You see, people who know me know that what I have stressed for the last several years has been quality, 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 not quantity, but quality. As a result, yes, other groups can have a meeting like this and they probably have 10 times as many people as we have. You know, that's fine. Again, this is by design. We purposefully have been looking for people who are of the highest quality, people who are sincere, people who have deep humility, which is a spiritual quality that even the most so-called spiritual people never emphasize today. But yet it's crucial. We need people who have this humility, people who have sincerity, people who have patience, people who have wisdom and the desire to acquire more wisdom. We're looking also for idealists, like I said before, people who truly want to change not only themselves, but having changed themselves, not stop there, then help others. This is what we are looking for. We need your help in a million ways. Now that we have stressed quality so much, and now that we have the foundations of a movement, 8 books that I've written, so many videos, a non-profit organization, and we have this beautiful temple and ashram that we own. Now that we have this as a foundation, now comes the quantity. Now comes the quantity, but again, built on that foundation, a real foundation of something true. Now we would like to start spreading throughout the nation. You know, Craig and I spoke about this briefly. Yes, I want to start having branches of the ISDS in other cities, just organically growing, one growing here, one growing in this city, in that city. And then indeed internationally. This is, after all, the International Sanatana Dharma Society, not the Omaha Sanatana Dharma Society. We can only do this with your help. How can you help us? Very practically. Give us donations. Become members. Volunteer to get the word out. You know, what does that mean? That means who here is not on Facebook or Twitter or something? We're all on social groups. Quite literally, please tell people about us. Tell people about our main website, dharmacentral.com. You know, we have all of our videos. Share the videos with people, please. If you're on Facebook, any of these venues in which you have hundreds, maybe thousands of friends, share the videos. Go to Dharma Central, you'll see hundreds of articles that are there. Wonderful articles on every aspect of Sanatana Dharma. Find a few articles that interest you, share them with people. Tell people about them. Just in literally any way that you can. Try to help us with what is going to be a movement that will bring about a Vedic restoration upon the face of the earth. because one thing that I am radically cognizant and aware of about myself is how finite I am. I am extremely finite. I know my limitations, and I have limitations. There's only so much that I can do. I get tired like everyone else, and I only have so much brain power, so much storage capacity in the brain, so many skills. I only have so much. We need the help of everyone here, whatever skills you have. Even if you think you don't have skills, trust me, you do. Even if all you know how to do is cook some fantastic rice. You know, we need whatever help that you can give. And even if it's small, please help us in every way.